Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Traina. Thank you for listening. Fantastic show today. We get you ready for the NFL season, which is finally here, with one of the Mount Rushmore NFL voices, Al Michaels, now over at Amazon doing Thursday Night Football with Kirk Herbstreit. Excellent chat with Al about going to Amazon and not working at NBC anymore, but having chemistry with Herbstreit, what we could expect from the Amazon broadcast. Some stories from his 1 year at CBS, Howard Stern stories about working with Chick Hearn, who you saw in Winning Time, and Al having an experience with Chick Hearn like Pat Riley. It was great stuff with Al. And then Sal Licata for Train of Thoughts. Give you a little best bet NFL pick, get into the legalized gambling sites that I have some issues with, discuss Sal bringing a 1.5-year-old to a Met game, which was problematic to say the least, and Sal gives us some vintage Sal. And we have a giveaway in the Train of Thought segment via Brady brand, Tom Brady's company, giving away some nice stuff here for the listeners. So there's a nice Brady brand giveaway in Train of Thought, so make sure you stick around with that. Before we get to the pod, well, we're in the pod. Before we get to the interviews, let me just tell you, if you missed any recent SI Media podcasts, check them out in the archives. Matthew Berry last week on his big move from ESPN to NBC. 2 weeks ago, Roman Reigns from the WWE and Andy Staples on college football. 3 weeks ago, Tim Burke, a.k.a. Bubba Prague on Twitter, on the Manti Te'o documentary on Netflix. Check those out. Subscribe to the podcast, rate, and review. All right, Al Michaels, followed by Train of Thoughts with a giveaway in that segment right here on the SI Media Podcast. All right, joining me now, always love having him on, SI Media Podcast regular, Mount Rushmore broadcaster, man, part of the greatest live TV prank call of all time, and a man who has never eaten a vegetable. He is now the Amazon play-by-play man, Al Michaels. Al, thanks for doing this. How are you?
Jimmy, let's go make some headlines.
Let's make some.
Right.
Yeah. Who offered you how much money over the past year, and why did you end up with Amazon? How about that? Let's start there.
And how often can I plead the fifth? Anyway.
Well, it feels like this offseason with the broadcaster stuff has been going on forever. So I'm glad it's all finally here and we get some games. You got the first Amazon game next Thursday. You have a good one, Chargers and Chiefs. In KC, great place, great atmosphere. Let me start with this. You did one preseason game for Amazon with Kirk Herbstreit. I think it was Niners, Texans.
Right.
I said this on Twitter, and I wrote this in my column. I was stunned at the chemistry right off the bat and the smoothness of the broadcast with someone you've never worked with before. Had you done practice games before that?
What we had done is 6 days before, out here in Los Angeles, the Rams played the Texans at SoFi in a preseason game. And we did a telecast that went to a veritable tape machine. Didn't go out over the air anywhere. But we wanted to get the crew together, top to bottom, all the cameramen, all the tape operators, all of the ancillary people who do every job imaginable on that show. About, I'd say, 90 to 100 people. And how is this going to work? And we started to do the game. And right off the bat, I felt very comfortable with Kirk. Fred Godelli, our producer, he's skinning several different cats that night because he has some people that he's worked with that he knows and can trust, and others that he doesn't know and sort of either has to train or bring into what we're trying to do so that we're all on the same page. So I'd say by the end of the first quarter, I said, this is really working extremely well. And then we did 3.5 quarters that night. And we didn't take the game to its conclusion because we said, hey, this is going to work. And we went down to Houston to do a real game, a preseason game anyway, that actually went out on the air. And you're right. It felt very, very comfortable. Now, what I found to be interesting was that when I first was paired with John Madden back in 2002, Fred Godelli was the producer, and he asked us if we wanted to do a practice game. And since I was the senior member of the Monday Night Crew and John had come over from Fox at that point, John looked at me and I said to Fred, I don't think we need to do this because I've heard John do hundreds of games. John has heard me do a couple of hundred games. I think we know the rhythm. And right off the bat, by the second commercial in our first game, I went, that part is easy as pie. Pretty much the same thing with Chris Collinsworth back in '09, because Chris and I had done one game when John had a week off in 2008. I'd known Chris for a long time. My brother was actually his producer at NBC back in the '90s. I thought Chris was tremendous before I ever worked with him. That worked. So with Kirk, I didn't really know him until April, and then we had a couple of days in New York together and a couple of other meals and meetings and phone calls. And I knew his rhythm and he knew mine. So I don't want to say I was shocked by it, but I was very pleasantly surprised and walked away from the booth that night saying, for a preseason game where you're not talking about any strategy, where it's kind of like, it's the Wild West in a way. And we're going to the sideline reporter, Kaylee Hartung, a lot. It's not like a regular season game, but I feel really comfortable going into that Charger Kansas City game next week.
Yeah. When you're doing that, as you're doing it, are you thinking, wow, this is smooth sailing here? There's no issue. Are you talking to Kirk about how smooth it seems, or you don't do that during the game?
I think there was almost by osmosis a feeling that, you don't want to say, hey, this is fantastic, this is great, because we have a tendency to do that too much in this business. It was rolling along, and I think we both felt as if it was rolling along, and it was good. And I've always likened it, Jimmy, to, the game, I've always said, is a melody. We provide the lyrics, and the greatest songs ever recorded were songs that had the lyrics perfectly matching the melody. Because if they don't, it sounds like, heavy metal. I'm not saying you want to sound like Perry Como, but nobody would even know who Perry Como is in this audience. But it just, you want it to flow. You want it to sound, not sound cacophonous. And so that is what we're actually trying to do. We're trying to, to blend. And I really felt, and the feedback I get now, naturally, your friends are going to tell you, that was great. But friends that I really trust, that are inside the business, that know what this is about, they were pleasantly surprised too.
Yeah, a lot's been made of Kirk doing the two games: the Thursday night Amazon with you, and then Saturday. Usually Saturday night. Once in a blue moon, it's during the day if it's a big game with Chris Fowler over at ESPN on college football. I know Troy has said it's pretty grueling. Troy Aikman. Has Kirk come to you for any advice? Have you talked about him doing the two games? Any tricks or tips that he's got to do? Or do you think, he's young enough where he can handle it and it's not a big deal?
I think, I'm sure he can handle it. I mean, the physical toll is going to be taxing because he's going to do a Thursday night game. Then, he has to do the game day show, which is fine if it's in the same locale as the night game. If you're in, I don't know where, Athens, Georgia, or Raleigh, North Carolina, wherever he's going to be. But if he has to do that show for 3 hours in the morning and then get on a plane, which he's done in the past, and fly to Eugene, Oregon, I mean, God bless, and I hope everything works out great in that regard. And then he has to, with this schedule, pretty much fly home after the game on Saturday night to be in front of his television set on Sunday, because we only have 3 days to ramp up for the Thursday night game and to watch those games on Sunday Ticket or whatever platform we can to get ready for next week. So it's going to be quite the endeavor. The only thing I've really told him is make sure you take a lot of vitamin C.
Yeah, especially on the planes and everything. You don't want to get sick. Obviously, lots been made. This is the first year Amazon has the exclusive rights to Thursday night, and clearly they wanted a legit booth. They got it. Do you have any concerns, fears about doing the game for Amazon?
No, because it's a different platform, Jimmy. And for the most part, I'm working with a lot of the same people that I've worked with on Sunday night. I start at the top with Fred Godelli, who's producing it, who I've worked with for 21 years. So I know how that dynamic works. And I know how what Fred has done, and he's created, in my mind, the best sports show on television over the last 2 decades. So you start there. Our director, Pierre Moussa, has a ton of experience. He did Notre Dame for a lot of years and has done a lot of other things at NBC, and I've been a part of some of those at the Olympics. I would say 40 to 50% of the crew, and I'm talking about tape operators, audio people, cameramen. They've either been a part of Sunday and are coming to Thursday because they want the weekends off, or they're going to work both. So they're going to have kind of a Kirk Herbstreit type of schedule without doing a pregame show. So in that sense, it's comfortable, and I can't look at it like I'm reinventing some sort of a wheel here, or I'm going to do something differently. I'm going to try to, look, it's not a case of doing it differently. It's a case of, can we do it better? Can we tweak it and make it perfect? We're always looking to pitch the perfect game. So there's a big comfort level there, knowing I'm not, flying blind with a new producer and a totally new crew. And this is why, Jimmy, Amazon had to, they didn't have the infrastructure to do this. So they had to partner with an entity, either NBC, or I think Fox was in that mix for a while. I think CBS dropped that early in terms of a partnership. So they had to acquire the infrastructure. So because of that, I would say my comfort level is far more than it would have been had I been going in blind.
The biggest takeaway I saw after that preseason game was a lot of people were remarking about how it felt like a Sunday night game. It looked, felt, sounded like Sunday Night Football, which I think is a huge win for Amazon, huge win for you guys. There was now listen, I'm in the business, so I hear things, and the NFL and Roger Goodell, you correct me here, you're the one who should be speaking this more than me, but they're involved in the broadcast part of this. They're not going to let someone come in and reinvent the wheel, I think. We've seen Apple do this with baseball on Friday nights. Some people like it, some people don't like it. The NFL is not doing that. They're going to play it straight, which they did. And I think the consensus from everyone was, this looks like Sunday Night Football. We're good to go here. And I think the biggest challenge for Amazon by far and away is just letting people know that that's where the game is on Thursday night. We're in the media world. I'm on Twitter all day, unfortunately. You'd be surprised. I still have to this day people who I know, friends, sports fans, saying to me, is the game on local? Is it only on Amazon? They don't understand. The game is only on Amazon unless the two teams are in your market. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is just getting people to know that it's there only, not anywhere else.
I would agree with you. And I think Amazon, in terms of promoting it or trying to show people, hey, here's what you do. And, they tell me, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but something 150 million people already subscribe to Prime Video. So if you do, and if you watch Prime Video, you just go there, right, and the game will appear. You go there at 7:00 Eastern time, and the pregame show comes on, and then the game will follow that. So that part of it's going to be easy. The people who don't have it, I think, obviously they want to know how to get it. But, a lot of people, I think the only thing that's really different with other streaming services here, if you have Netflix, and a lot of people have Netflix, obviously, it's on demand. I mean, at 4:00 in the morning, you want to watch a movie, you do. 3:00 in the afternoon, whatever it is. A year later, it's there. This is a little different in that it's live. So, right, you at 7:00 Eastern time, you want to make sure you're there. So that'll, some people I'm sure will be late to the game trying to figure out, where do I go? How do I see this? I think that will evolve over time, from what I understand. And again, a lot of this is probably, look, my kids, my grandkids all understand everything about this, right? So they're in that demographic. And right, maybe I'm not necessarily in that demographic, but I would know how to log on. It's different. It's different. But it will. And by the way, Jimmy, you mentioned it had a Sunday night feel. So if you have the number one show on television for 11 consecutive years and counting right now, and that's why on earth would you want to not do it that way?
Right.
Right. I mean, why in the world would you want to?
Well, because some people come in with their egos and want to do look at me, look what I'm going to do, reinvent the wheel. So that's why.
Oh yeah. Oh, Jimmy, look, I'm telling you. Look, I'm all for young people getting into the business and all of that. And I don't want to sound like a codger and get off my lawn, all that crap, because I do believe in the enhancement and bringing the young people along. And a lot of them are fantastic, and they evolve and they see what's going on. And then there are some, as you say, who come in with a big ego, and it's the finger snapping, fast talking crap, right? And they'll say to something like, "Hey, did you ever think about doing it this way?" And there was a guy in the not too distant past when I was doing the NBA, and he sort of had a little bit to do, a lot to do with how the NBA telecasts were going to be constructed. And he said to me, "Hey, did you ever think about doing it this way?" I said, "Did I ever think about it? 20 years ago, we did it that way." And then I had to take him through the timeline to where we are right now. So God bless him. If you have an idea, great. But don't tell me did you ever think about doing something when, at this point, I don't want to say I've done everything, but I've done everything.
I know you won't give me the name, but what did he want you to do? Can you get specific? I would love to know what he wanted you to change or what he wanted you to do.
Oh, it was the structure of the telecast and how things were being presented. I can't think of specific examples, but it was kind of like that, that finger snapping. Hey man, I'm here, and believe me, I've been through a ton of those people through my career. I shouldn't say a ton, a few, because for the most part, the younger ones coming up, I'd love to see them evolve. I'd love to see them. I know so many people right now. Sean McManus runs CBS Sports, was a production assistant of mine for a long time. Bill Bonnell, produces college football on Disney. Work with him. So I work with a lot of these people, as like interns and production assistants, and I'm thrilled to see, where they've gone.
Give me the single most ridiculous piece of advice someone tried to give you.
The single most ridiculous piece of advice
in terms of your broadcasting.
There's no one single thing. Once in a while, somebody will say, why don't you, sound more enthusiastic? Why don't you?
That's a big one. I see that with a lot of broadcasters.
That is, but let me tell you something, Jimmy. Here's my feeling about this. I've been watching sports since I was 6 years old. Loved sports. I watched bowling from Paramus, New Jersey when I was a kid in New York. I mean, on Saturday nights. I watched everything. I have learned to be in concert and in sync and as a fan with the game. And again, I go back to that lyrics melody thing. If the game is dull, don't holler the game at the audience. Don't scream the game at the audience. Maybe you can be a little bit above a dull game. And if a game is great, don't go over the top of it. The game by itself is great. And so when the game is great, I find myself talking less than more, maybe in ellipses and captions, more so than complete sentences. So that's how I view things. So again, it's a case of, I can't say it's the most ridiculous piece of advice, but occasionally, once in a while, people say, well, Al sounds like he's bored with the game. I'm not bored with the game. I'm just trying to be in concert with the game. It's as simple as that.
Right. So with Amazon, I think Amazon Prime to subscribe and get all the free delivery. It's like $170, $180 a year. And I hope you get that for free now. I hope there's some perks. No perks. No free perks. Videos. Come on. What is that? Take care of Al, will you?
I have my own truck out in the driveway. Apart from that,
I've seen the truck. I saw that. Where was I? I was going to a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts last week, and there was an Amazon truck in front of me, and it had the Sunday Night Football. They had a bunch of players and all that on the truck. Yeah, they're doing that. Now, normally in a situation like this, I would say to you, you're at Amazon after all those years at NBC. Is there a part of you that maybe wants to stick it to NBC a little bit and show them you still got it? You're still the number one guy. But you're still working for NBC because you're going to call a playoff game for them, and they named you emeritus. Now, first of all, what is that? What is your duties? What is your responsibilities as the emeritus at NBC Sports?
Well, in addition to doing the playoff game, I guess I would be the guy in the bullpen in case something happened and they needed me to fill in on some show. Obviously, I've done tons and tons of sports through the years, and I think the emeritus thing, we'll see how it evolves. I think it may mean things like next year, for instance, the U.S. Open is 4 miles from my house, so maybe I'm not hosting or I'm not doing the Dan Hicks role, but I might be providing certain LA oriented or based stories about that. Not sure what's going to happen. Maybe the Olympics are in Paris. It's on wall to wall. So there may be certain things that appeal to me and appeal to them in terms of coming in and being, I don't want to say it's the old, you might remember Jack Whitaker. Jack Whitaker kind of the essays, that sort of thing.
Right.
Maybe it goes in that direction. I just don't know at this point. Right now, I'm thinking football, football, football until the end of the year.
And how important was it for you to get that playoff game with NBC?
Well, that was part. That was already built into the contract with Amazon, because that was NBC having two games, one probably on Saturday, one on Sunday, though they conceivably could be on the same day. And so Tirico and Collinsworth will do one, and I'll do the other game. Whether I don't know whether it'll be Saturday or Sunday, but no, it's look. Anytime you can be a part of a playoff game, and as you know, I've done 11 Super Bowls and I don't know 60 postseason games. It's fantastic, and some of the greatest postseason games in NFL history. So, yeah, I'm very happy to be a part of that too, and at least keep my my fingers in the pie for postseason.
And a big thing for every broadcaster, every play-by-play guy, especially in the NFL, and especially on the standalone games, which is what Thursday Night Football is obviously the schedule. I'm sure you were devouring the schedule when it came out to see where. I thought, listen, they've got to take care of Sunday night. There's been a bigger emphasis on taking care of Monday night. Sunday 4:25 is always going to be a top game. I thought they did a pretty good job taking care of Amazon and you guys there. I went through it. I think there were only like, maybe two clunkers the whole year. I think there was Commanders at Bears where week 6, which is early enough where if later in the season that might be a problem. Maybe and then later in the season you have Jaguars Jets week 16. I don't know why they did that to you, but that's just me speaking there. But you had to be overall, I think, pretty happy with what you got, right?
Well, you start with the fact that every team has to be on at least once, but there are two teams that don't have to be on because we have 15 weeks, 30 teams. And then as it turned out, there were some vagaries in the Tennessee schedule. So we have Tennessee twice. We have them at Green Bay, and then we have our last game, I think, is Dallas at Tennessee. So there are only 3 teams we don't have. The Giants, surprisingly, I thought we'd do a game in New York with them. Minnesota, kind of a funny team to not have on the schedule, and Detroit, and you can sort of understand, where the Lions have been. Maybe they'll play their way back into, the schedule next year. Right. So we have 29 of the teams. I looked at the schedule. I said, good opener. Second week 3 of the season, our second week, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. Very interesting, good rivalry. Third week, Super Bowl participants, Cincinnati against Miami. Indianapolis goes to Denver, is really good. I think we've got a New Orleans, Arizona game. I mean, there's some interesting matchups here.
Yeah.
About, teams that don't play each other a lot. The Washington-Chicago game, if nothing else, you're talking about 2 major markets.
Right,
major.
Right.
Chicago, they haven't been very good, so they don't appear on Sunday night or Monday night very often, at least in the last couple of years. But it's always good to have a Chicago game on. And then going down the line, I looked at the Baltimore, Tampa Bay. You got Brady and Lamar Jackson, supposedly. Who knows what actually happens that night. And you're right, a couple of clunkers in there, but sometimes the clunkers turn out either to be really good games or teams are like shockingly surprising. I mean, we have a Carolina-Atlanta game somewhere down there in, I think, October or November. So if Baker Mayfield lights it up, I mean, all of a sudden that game now has more sheen than it would be just saying, hey, Carolina's playing Atlanta in November.
Right. Well, here's the thing, and you know this as well as anyone. Even with the clunkers, thanks to legalized sports betting, you will still have an audience for that. I mean, all you need to know about the NFL is they had a Steelers-Lions game on NFL Network on a Saturday night, and it got more viewers than Yankees-Red Sox on Fox, which was in, I think, 40 million more homes. So I think the legalized sports betting helps you out with the clunker. Jaguars-Jets week 16, if it's a standalone game, the bettors will be there.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah.
Oh, you and I both know. I mean, you can also look, and I've always been the rascal, and I've always loved to fool around with point spreads and over and unders and all of that. And I was able to do that through the years, and people would say, well, the league doesn't want him to do it, but look at this. He's the rascal. We love this. Okay. I get that. And, my all my buddies loved that. This game is not quite over. I can't really. I can do that now, but it won't have the impact. But
Right.
I think people sometimes can get so immersed in this. I just don't want half the country going to Gamblers Anonymous by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I think it's fun to bet on a game and all of that, but if you're starting to bet the mortgage money or the kids' tuition or something, you better get yourself some help. So
Right.
I think, legalized betting, good. By the way, if the people who are going to bet legalized, wager in legalized betting are still going to bet with bookies if there wasn't legalized betting for the most part. So this is not that big of a change.
Yeah. Well, what I would say about the difference there is I had that attitude as well. I always thought the legalized sports betting wouldn't be a big deal because if you wanted to bet, you were already betting whether it was legal or not. I've changed my tune on that a little now that I've dabbled in all these websites because what's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger each day and is just the live betting is a huge thing. The live, which you can't do with a bookie. You can't do live betting with a bookie. But the fact that you can put on a Thursday night game at any moment and get a new spread, a new total, and bet it adds a whole other layer that it wasn't there. That's not there with the bookie. So I had the same attitude as you, and I changed only because for that reason.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, but I wonder, and I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah.
What percentage of the audience is actually doing this? I mean, we keep forgetting, when we would do a Super Bowl and somebody would say, wow, what's it like to go on the air in front of like 110 million people? And I would say, it's real simple in my mind. 330 million people live in this country. So 220 million people are not watching this. So so if 15 million people are watching a game, I'd love to know at some point what percentage, and I tend to think it's rather small, are going to sit there and go, I'm going to bet run pass. I'm going to bet, the fourth quarter over under or all that. I just don't know, but I don't think it will be all pervasive because everybody would run out of money by a certain point.
Right. I do think. I mean, listen, it's going to get bigger. That's why all these networks are trying to capitalize. I agree with you. The percentage is probably not what we think, but when it's the Jets Jaguars in Week 16, the percentage will be very high.
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure the percentage of the total audience will be that high, but the percentage of those watching will probably be higher. Listen, Jimmy, the only fear I have with going into this package is that, and Nielsen's going to rate everything right now for the first time ever, I guess. So I'm a little nervous about that. I don't know how that's going to work out. But if I see the Dude Perfect on the alternate feed outrage us one night, I'm done. I'm announcing my retirement.
That would be a problem. I think Amazon has like 5 alternative feeds, if I'm not mistaken. It's funny. We talked about it earlier about just if you don't like this broadcast or that, with all these alternative. I think Monday night is fascinating, where you have Joe and Troy, which you could say is the top booth, the second best booth is good, wherever you want to rank them. And then going with the Manning cast, same company, same, I think that's a very interesting. How would you feel about that if you were doing Monday night and they had the Manning cast there? Would you look at it as competition, or would you look at it as we're all one company, everyone watch what you want?
Right. I believe in the big top theory where, you're outside, the super circus. Come on, come one, come all. Hey, if that's your thing, great. I think a lot of people, and I love the Manning cast. I mean, it was great last year. Those guys they're sensational. They are one-offs in terms of doing something like that. But, you'd have to go back and watch the game too, because sometimes you want to watch the game as the game. And they would have the guests, and a lot of them were great. And some of them, you'd switch immediately back to the game itself. But this is the world we live in right now. This is, will the New York Daily News go out of business because the New York Post has a larger subscription base? No. I don't know if that's the right analogy necessarily here. But tell me a business where there's no competition. Right. And so, again, in this particular case, you're competing against yourself. Now, are you savaging yourself? I don't think you are. I think that ESPN probably figured out. I think they thought that more people total would watch if you had the alternate telecast in addition to the regular telecast. That's my guess. I don't know for a fact, but I'm thinking that the audience, it doesn't get diminished by the fact there's an alternate feed.
There was so much made about the Manning cast last year, and I loved it too. But I mean, they were doing 1.5 million, and the traditional telecast was doing 10, 11, 12 million. And I think may even do even better with Joe and Troy. But it's all about the game. You have a good game, you get more people watching. It's that. Is it going to be weird for you to not call a game in week one? This must be the first time in 30 years you're not calling a week one game?
37 years.
Wow.
20 on Monday, 16 on Sunday. And I've done the first game of the season for, I think, 18 years. I think the last couple at ABC we had it. And then this was part of the NBC contract. Yeah. So, it'll be odd. It'll be strange. But, here we go, and the game will be over, and Sunday's games will be over, and I'm back to work next Thursday.
Yeah. Yep. I want to switch gears completely and talk about something that I've been wanting to talk to you about all summer, because over the summer I read a book that came out last December about the NFL today. I think it was called You Are Looking Live by Rich Podolsky. Did you read the book?
I did. I talked to Rich too. So
okay,
we had a long interview. Yeah.
So when I was reading that book one day, sitting on Jones Beach, relaxing, there are a couple of things in there about you that I was like, I cannot wait to have Al on the podcast to discuss this, because I don't know how I never knew you didn't do a year of football at CBS. But before we get to that, let me go. This is a circle, but we'll get there. Did you watch HBO's Winning Time on the Lakers?
I watched I did. You mean the one that destroyed Jerry West?
Okay, so a big theme in that was how they treated Jerry West and Jerry. But the other guy who came off horrifically was Chick Hearn. And in one of the episodes, there's a famous episode where Pat Riley becomes his analyst. And this is in the show, so who knows what's real, And in the show, they have Chick Hearn basically telling Pat Riley, when I put my hand up like this, you stop talking. And Chick basically didn't want Pat Riley to ever speak. And then I read in this book that you worked with Chick Hearn, and it sounded like there was a similar experience there.
So you go all the way back to 1967. I get a job with California Sports Incorporated. They have the Lakers. They're building the Forum. It's Jack Kent Cooke. And the Los Angeles Kings are coming into the National Hockey League for their inaugural season. And I get a PR job, which may lead to being the color announcer for maybe the Kings. And they bring in Jiggs McDonald to do the games. And maybe they're thinking about me, the kid. I mean, this is a million years ago. I get a call from Jack Kent Cooke one day. He says, Alan, only Jack and my mother called me Alan. I want you to meet me at the airport. We're going to fly up to San Francisco because the Lakers are playing a preseason game against the Warriors at the Cow Palace. Go up there, and now I see what's happening. Chick Hearn did not want to work with any analyst. He wanted to do a one-man show. And I was used, to make a long story a lot shorter, as the sacrificial lamb, because they wanted Hot Rod Hundley to be the analyst. So they had to grease the skids and send me in there as the sacrificial lamb so that Chick would go, I can't work with this kid. It wasn't anything about me. And Chick and I became great pals through the years. And I did the appreciation piece in the LA Times when he died. So he didn't want to work with anybody. So on a television game, I wouldn't appear at all. I would do statistics. On a radio game, he'd let me read the stats at halftime and at the end of the game. That was it. I did 4 preseason games, and I did 7 or 8 regular season games and got fired. We're making a road trip early in the season, and we're going to go to Boston and Cincinnati, where the Royals was playing at that time. And I put my bag on the plane. I was also the traveling secretary. I had all of the tickets, and I'm handing them out to the players. Jerry West, Elgin Baylor. Think about this. Darryl Imhoff, Archie Clark. Bill Van Bredikoff was the coach. And Van Bredikoff is about the 6th or 7th guy to get out of a cab. And he says, give me the tickets. He said, call Alan Rothenberg, who was working in the Laker front office at that time for Cook. And don't get on the plane. So I know I'm going to get fired, right? I mean, I'm embarrassed as hell. And on top of it, I've got to get my bag off the plane. Now, this is 1967, where at least you can go to we're flying United, and they somehow were able to get the bag off. And I was standing there as a lonely, forlorn figure at baggage claim, watching it go round and round and waiting for the one bag to come off, which it did. Got in the car, going to the Beverly Hills office, and of course, I'm out of there.
Did Chick end up working with Hot Rod Hundley?
He did.
Okay.
Correct. So, in fact, not only did he wind up working with Hot Rod Hundley, but when I turned the game on the next night, there was Chick with Hot Rod, right? One night later. So they'd already sent Hot Rod to Boston. So that was my Laker experience. Of course, that was one and done and out of there and all. And as I say, Cook was just full of bombast and bullshit. And but that was Jack Kent Cook. And Chick and I became great friends. And we understood what had happened.
Yeah. It sounds almost like a Sopranos episode. Like you had to get whacked so they could bring in Hot Rod Hundley to work with Chick, because Chick didn't want to work with someone so young and inexperienced.
Right. I was 22 years old at that point. I had no experience. Right. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, he didn't come off great in winning time, because the Riley story, they make it seem like, he didn't want Pat to ever speak. And then the other, so you did what, 1 year of NFL at CBS?
Yes, but before that, I did 2 games for NBC Regional back in 1971, both featuring the Buffalo Bills at Minnesota and at the Jets. And then in 1974, I did about 8 games on NBC, regional games. And then the following, so then NBC, I asked for a little bit more money going into 75. They didn't want to pay it. And then all of a sudden I knew that CBS was interested in me. And that's how I wound up going to CBS.
And the theme in the book was, at that time when you were there at CBS for that year, Costas was also there. And they had Brent, I think. And it was Brent was there. I think Bob came a little later than that. Oh, okay.
I think
so. The theme was that CBS had all these young broadcasters at one time, where and then ended up losing most of them until they fired Brent to have Nance, take over that spot.
That was way down the line.
Way later. Yeah.
We're talking about the 70s here.
Yeah.
No, I was about the number 4 or 5 guy. So I started out the season with my partner is Wayne Walker, the former Lions linebacker. And then Wayne gets fired because he didn't want to do a game when his family wanted to go to Disneyland, and they took us off a game in LA and put us on a game in New England. Then I worked with a guy named Tim Van Gelder, who was a long forgotten quarterback at one point with the Cardinals. Then I did a game. I did a game with Johnny Unitas, which was an unbelievable thrill for me.
Yeah.
I mean, we did New Orleans at Oakland, and that's when I first met John Madden. And I was living across the bay and from Oakland. I'm living in Menlo Park. And I went to meet Madden, and the first conversation we ever had was about Travels with Charlie, the book by Steinbeck. That's what he wanted to do someday. And then who would know that 25 years later we would, wind up making our own little music together.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that story today, though? If a game analyst at the week before decides he's not doing the game because he's going to Disney with his family.
Wayne had married an heiress, and they had a beautiful home in Tiburon overlooking San Francisco. And he basically said, "Screw it, I'm going to Disneyland." Right? I am going to Disneyland, and
that's great.
I'm not going to go do San Francisco at New England. And
that's
that
phenomenal.
did it for Wayne, who was he was the anchor on the sports anchor on the CBS affiliate in San Francisco. But then they're moving around. I had Johnny Morris with me, and then I get to Atlanta week 13 or 12. It's later in the season. It's mid-November probably. I don't know who my analyst is. They tell me I don't know. So I'm checking into the Marriott Hotel on Friday night in downtown Atlanta, and I look over into the next line and I see Hank Stram. And I thought, well, Hank was a CBS guy, and I said, "Hank, Al Michaels, or we?" And he said, "I think so." So that's how I met Hank. And then Hank and I did the last, 5 or 6 games that season together. Loved Hank. Loved him. We had a blast. And I'll never forget, the last game we do is Rams at New Orleans. We're going to go to dinner in the French Quarter on Saturday night before the game. And he calls my room at about 6 o'clock, and he says, "Can't have dinner. I'm going to go meet John Meekum, who owned the team." And I said, "Hey," I said, "Hank, this is great. I think you're back on the sidelines next year." "Oh, no. Okay." My phone rings the next morning at 6:30. We're going to leave the hotel around 9:30 for a noon game. "You got to meet me for breakfast." "What?" No, come down. And then he says to me, he says, "Do you think I have a future in this business?" I said, "Hank, absolutely." He said, "I got this opportunity." I said, "I know. I'm sure Meekum offered you the job. Hank, do yourself a favor. You're still a coach. Go back to the sidelines, and this will be available to you when you're done with this portion of your career. Okay? It'll be there." And Hank and I became, fast friends and great friends all the way to his dying day.
Did you ever work with anyone or maybe you didn't work with them, but a coach or a player who you thought would have been a great analyst and they went back into the game and never got back into it? Is there? No, I don't want you to say they weren't a great analyst, because they weren't. I mean, someone who could have and should have been good, but never pursued it or never went all out. A player or coach over the years you thought really could have done a great job with it.
I didn't work with him, but I think Bill Parcells, had he devoted himself to this business, would have been fabulous. Because, Bill he's unfiltered, but it's a smart unfiltered. There are guys who are unfiltered and it's stupid, or not particularly smart. Bill had all of the goods. And I think, I don't know if I've told this story, I wrote about it in my book, that when Monday night, Don Ohlmeyer came in to produce it in 2000. We wound up doing, it was the Dennis Miller year. We had Dan Fouts. We changed the whole show around. But the original concept was to get Parcells to do this. And Bill had just left coaching, he had the health issue, and he was with the Jets, and he's going to go into the front office, which was going to excite him to the point where, it could have been something that he wanted to do for a long period of time. And Bill and I had two extremely long conversations on the phone right after Howard Katz, who was running ABC Sports at the time, had contacted Bill. And we talked for at least an hour and a half on each occasion. And Bill was the guy who, as a coach, would always have all the answers. But in these conversations, he had all the questions, and the questions were great. And he wanted to know the forensics of everything that happens in the booth. By the time I'm finished with Bill, the second conversation, I say to him, "Look," I said, I love where you're going. I think this would make a great team. I think the only thing I'm asking you to do is don't think of this as a halfway house. Those of us who do this show love it. It's our lifeblood. We're honored to be a part of it. So if this is going to be a way station for you, no. Just please do me that favor. And Bill says, "I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I have to think about this very carefully." He said, "But I'll tell you what, if I do this, I will be the best analyst that ever existed." So now I wanted him more than ever. But a week later, he was thinking about it. He was right on the edge. But I think a lot of it had to do with the travel. Right. Even though they were going to take care of that, privately or whatever they had to do. I think Bill hated the travel. And I think even though he did go back, and I knew at that point too, I said he had one more go round, and of course that turned out to be the Cowboys.
Dallas, yeah. I love that answer because I'm a huge Parcells fan. Just as a New Yorker, I was always fascinated by the guy and the humor of Bill. I post this on Twitter every year when it happens, when it's his birthday, whatever. One of my all-time favorite sports quotes. It's from an old Patriot game. It's before the game. Bill's walking down the field with the trainer, and the trainer says they're talking about the kicker, the place kicker. And the trainer says, "I think he'll be okay." And Bill's like, "What?" He goes, "I think he'll be okay to play." And Bill goes, "I don't need him to play, Doc. I just need him to kick."
Exactly.
And just a great line. Great line.
Oh, he's great. And even, if he wanted to get the point across, Bill was an educated and a very smart man, top to bottom. But if once in a while he had to go, off script to make his point, like, that's why you lift all them weights, right?
Right.
Of course he knew those weights. That's why you lift all them weights, right? Which is more powerful than lifting those weights, which would be grammatically correct.
Right.
No,
right.
Bill would have been great.
Yeah,
Tremendous.
he did that. And Bill, another story I remember because I was a kid and I remember just like almost peeing in my pants when I heard this. Bill did games for NBC with Marv for a couple of years.
My
And
brother produced them. My
Oh,
brother
really?
produced the games, David Michaels. Yes, exactly.
I will never forget this story. Ask your brother if he remembers it. They were doing a Jet game. Player gets hurt. And back then, remember they used to have like the carts that came out, but they were like in the shape of a helmet or whatever?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bill goes on a rant about you have this tough 300-pound guy who's down and hurt and he's writhing in pain and, pressure, and then bring out this cart that's like for a 12-year-old. And, Bill's ripping the cart. And there's, Marv is so great.
Right.
There's like maybe 2-3 seconds of total silence. And then Marv just goes, Bill not liking the Jetmobile.
Perfect. They made a good combination.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Well, Marv's
really
like you.
did.
I mean, they could work with anyone. Let me ask a couple of NFL questions before he wraps with the season here. We mentioned the gambling. I don't want to get to like heavy duty gambling, but do you look at the win totals for each team before, like as an indicator? I tweeted this the other day. The Bills total is like 11.5. I'm like, how are they not going over the Bills? Do you look at those at all?
Sure, I do. It gives you an idea of what the outside world thinks about it.
Any of them stand out that you thought this is too high, this is too low?
Not really, because I think they're more condensed. I mean, you don't see a 13 or a 14, and you don't see a 2. Yeah. So it's somewhere between 11 and 5, maybe. So because you don't know, there are so many vagaries. There are so many things that you don't know will happen or won't happen. You don't know about injuries. So I look at that to see generally, how people assess the league in total, all 32 teams, and how they stack up against each other.
Give me a storyline you're most interested, what you want to see play out, what you think is most intriguing going into the season. I know for me, it's Brady. I think with the 11 days off and, I wanted to give you a minute to think of one about, the days off and he has the contract to go into broadcasting. What does he do after this season? I think the Brady thing is fascinating.
You didn't have to give me a minute. I was going to say it before you said it. Yeah, of course. The Brady thing is paramount. And I'm not going to say it's number one, but I mean, it's right up there where, you want to see how that plays out. I'm curious about, a lot of things. You want to see how Mayfield plays out in Carolina. You want to see how, the Cleveland mess plays out. And then you get to week 11, and that's wild. I think the 49ers situation is really interesting because, you're going to give the keys to the Ferrari to Lance. Don't crash it into the fence. But the other guy, this is the student driver, and now the real, the instructor is going to be around there to take the wheel if you have to take the wheel. And that team is a really good team. The Rams are obviously a good. I think that, the Rams, assuming that Stafford is Stafford and Stafford has no limitations. I think Sean McVay is an amazing figure. I think Sean's a unicorn. I mean, he's 36 years old. He's still the youngest coach in the league. Still, he has sent 4 guys off his tree to head coaching positions. Think about that. Name a coach in the league right now. Maybe Andy Reid, I guess, whose guys have come and gone. But I mean, look at the guys Sean has sent in there. Taylor goes to a Super Bowl. We don't know about O'Connell yet in Minnesota. Staley's going to be one of the better coaches in the league. He did a couple of crazy things, which the analytics people thought he did the right thing, but whatever. Could have gotten to the playoffs last year, but didn't. And I think he is. I really never quite met a guy like him who, and I've gotten to know him very well personally too, because he lives in LA and we've had some dinners together, and his brain is off the charts. Not just in football, he assesses things, he sees things, and I know every time I have dinner with him, I go back home and I say to my wife, I said, "How can a guy that young be that smart?" So, and he almost. There was a moment in time where he could have stepped away.
Right. I was going to mention, there was an outstanding, really, there was an outstanding feature. It was very long, maybe like a month or two ago on McVay. I was going to try to look up who. I thought it was Kevin Clark. It might not have been. I think it was ESPN who did it. I want to get the author right, but it was an outstanding feature on McVay, and they talked about him turning down the $20 million from Amazon and all this about what kind of guy he is and the wedding, and it's a must read feature on McVay. I'll try to figure out who wrote it before we wrap, but it was good. Let me ask you. I want to go back to Brady just 1 second. I'm not a football player. Who am I? I don't think his 11-day absence is that big of a deal in terms of what's going to happen on the field, wins and losses for the season. What do you make of that?
Oh, I'm with you 100%. I mean, seriously, this guy won't miss a beat. He's going to be what he was, whether he spent those 11 days in camp or didn't. In today's world, everybody wants to know, where was he? What was happening? Or is he fighting with Giselle, Masked Singer? It's like crazy stuff. And then the rumors begin to float and fly around, and who knows what happened. Tom will be what Tom would have been with those 11 days or not.
Right. And
Tom is, they talk about McVay as a unicorn. What do you say about Tom? How do you do that at that age? How do you do that? And the fact, I thought I had done his last game ever, the Tampa Bay Rams game, where he leads them back from a 27-3 deficit, and then the Rams pull it out at the end. But he's back, and of course, he's must-see TV. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I'm torn because I love watching him play, but I want to see how he does as a broadcaster. I'm very curious to see. And I'm sure you are, as a legendary broadcaster yourself. I'm sure there's some intrigue there to see how Tom does in the booth.
I think he'll do better than a lot of people realize. I've read some columns or comments from people saying, well, Tom is too structured and he's too concerned about his image, blah, 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 blah. The Tom I know will become immersed in this job. If Tom does this at whatever point, Tom is not going to phone it in. Tom is going to want to be great. I don't see. I've had a chance to play some golf with Tom, and he is a student beyond comprehension. And I watched him take a couple of lessons, and he wants to know everything about is the right elbow at a 27-degree angle to the left hip. He's that immersive. So I don't see Tom doing anything but working his ass off if and when he goes into broadcasting.
I feel you on that. I agree 100%. The author, by the way, the McVay feature, it's ESPN. It wasn't Kevin Clark of the Ringer, my bad. Seth Wickersham. It's a great feature from early August, if anyone didn't see it. Last one on the football. You have a Packers game on the schedule. One of the Thursday nights, I believe. You have a Green Bay game, right? Will you and Kirk any plans to do some ayahuasca to prepare for the game so you can be on the same page as Aaron Rodgers?
I'm thinking about heading over to Aaron's house earlier in the week and figuring out what the hell this thing is, right?
It gives you more self-love. That was what he said.
But we get them like week 11 or 12. So this thing is going to play out in different forms by that point. So it's not as if, we have to start week 1 and get into this thing, which is a story in and of itself. But I'll tell you what, though. Aaron is, in terms of the players we meet with, you never come away empty. You always come away thinking. Now, granted, a lot of people, he's off-putting to a lot of people because of stuff that they go, oh, what does that really mean? But Aaron, Aaron's got a great brain. I don't care what you think about what he thinks, but the brain works. He really gets it. And you can't play at his level, too, without really having a great brain in addition to the physical skills and all of that. But every meeting we have with Aaron is elucidating, informative, and fun in a way. So he's one of those guys. Sometimes you go into a meeting with guys and go, oh, geez, can't wait to get out of here. Goodbye. Thanks very much. Not with Rodgers. Yeah. Never.
All right. Well, maybe, in the off season, you go to Costa Rica with him or wherever it was and do a little trip.
No, that's Brady. Brady goes to Costa Rica.
Yeah. Well,
he went to South America, didn't he? He was someplace in Colombia or Brazil.
He's working hard. He's working hard for that home life. Let me ask you that, since we're mentioning it. That's a really dicey subject. Do you feel like if you had a Bucks game this week, Do you mention rumblings about him and Giselle? Do you stay away from that because it's so personal? I think that's a tough one for you guys to navigate because it's only been stuff we've seen in the post. So I don't know, how you handle that.
How I handle it is I have to know it's true. I have to know it's true. Otherwise, I'm doing a disservice to him. I'm doing a disservice to the audience and frankly, myself and my reputation. Because if you start throwing crap out there and you're not sure of it, that's the best way to ruin your reputation, get them pissed off at you, as you know,
right.
and have the audience go, what? So, no, I think I would handle it in terms of it's well known. Tom missed 11 days. Not quite sure what would happen is in the meeting with Tom, you would go, here's what he said.
Right.
Here's what he said.
Right. You'd have the meeting on Saturday. Yeah.
You'd have it on the record.
Yeah.
And as long as it's on the record, fine. If you don't know 1,000%, don't go there. I mean, that's been my mantra for years.
Yeah. Before we wrap, I appreciate the time. I have to ask, I started this by introing you saying you were part of the greatest live TV prank call of all time. Everyone knows it was the O.J. Simpson car chase. The Howard Stern caller calls up and you come on, lest anyone think, totally farcical. Howard took the summer off. He came back on Tuesday. Were you able to listen at all?
Not yet. I mean, I have it on demand, obviously. I'll get to it at some point today or tomorrow.
I talked about this last week with Matthew Berry, who's a huge Howard fan. No one has a better schedule than Howard.
Nobody, but you know what? You can't you can't envy him for that because when he works, I mean, I am fascinated not only by Howard's content, but you and I are gigantic fans. And I'll drive along and I never cease to laugh 20 times in a 30-minute car ride. The fact that he's been able to do this for almost 40 years is astonishing.
Yes.
Nobody can do this for 40 years. Nobody. And he does it. And then Robin's been fantastic, and Baba Booey and Fred and that whole group just works so seamlessly together. And I mean, the fact that Howard can make so much out of nothing, just come on the air, he sounds like he doesn't want to be there. The stream of consciousness, it's just, he's the one-off of one-offs as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Tuesday's show was great because he talked about the passing of his dad over the summer.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the majority of the show, and Howard spoke about him like only Howard can. So you should absolutely check that out when you get a chance.
Oh, yeah. Did he imitate his dad?
They played the old clips.
Yeah.
I think the best line he had was he was talking about his dad's last days when his dad wasn't well, and then finally passes. And Howard said, he when he died, he did what he did his whole life: ignore me. So it was vintage Howard. So, and can I tell you what I absolutely love about you talking about the show, which as a Stern, you rattled off why you love the show, and you said Howard, Robin, Fred. You didn't say Gary. You said Baba Booey. That's a true Howard fan.
That's how the prank call ended, right? And Baba Booey to you all, as if Jennings had no idea. Peter Jennings at that point, what was what, and that of course was. I knew what this was. I thought this was Captain Jenks and not Maury from Brooklyn, who turned out to be the prankster. But Baba Booey to you all was the all-time classic. And then coming back on the back end and trying to make sure that people knew this was a prank call. But I loved Howard so much, and I'm sitting there on the set, and you got 30, 40 million people watching this thing, and I'm thinking, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are pissed off that Howard had somebody put up to this on such a serious situation with a double murder and the guy sitting in the car and what's going to happen next. So I had to be protective of Howard. Right. So I didn't even mention his name. A certain radio talk show host, there was a code phrase indigenous to it. So I'm parsing words all over the place. Less farcical, the whole thing. I'm working all the edges so that Howard is not getting mad at me on the air because I knew this would be played forever. Right. And of course, it has been. And
it has been. I post that in my column at least like 3 times a year. It's just the build up, everything about it. And I will say this. I know you're not on Twitter, but One of the big themes I always talk about is like, what would happen if this happened during Twitter? And the number one moment for me is always the OJ car chase. That's to me that if you say what event could you have where Twitter would be around, it would be the OJ car chase. While the Knicks were playing the Rockets, that's what everyone forgets about. Yeah.
The World Series earthquake would be there too.
Yeah.
In those years, nobody knew what the hell was that. I did that game. Nobody in the stadium knew what happened.
Yeah,
there was no pipeline to the outside world at that point.
Right. Who was your partner for that game?
Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver.
Right. Yeah.
Loved working. One of my all-time favorite, trio. Absolutely my favorite trio, because those guys were just tremendous. I mean, 3-man booths or 3-people booths are difficult, but those guys, I love both of them to this day.
Yeah.
Yep, fantastic guys.
Al, I've enjoyed it thoroughly. We cannot wait to watch you on Amazon Prime. First game is Thursday, September 15th. Chargers at Chiefs with Kirk Herbstreit and a billion people on the Amazon pregame show. That's been one of my themes over the summer. Every day Amazon hired more people. So that's good for people who need jobs. By
the way, before we go, I like that group. I watched that pregame show from Houston.
Right. Ryan Fitzpatrick will be a star.
He'll be a star. Andrew Whitworth is going to be smart. He's the adult, not the adult in the room necessarily, but everything he says is smart.
Yeah.
Richard Sherman has a point of view. Carissa Thompson is a terrific host.
Great host.
Great. She's terrific. And Tony Gonzalez comes with his chops. Yeah. And Taylor Rooks is going to do a lot of interviews. Michael Smith is there. It's an eclectic group. It's a nice ensemble cast.
It's a big
cast.
It a lot. Big cast.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck with everything. Like I said, we look forward. And you got a great game to kick it off. Chargers Chiefs. That's total on that one should be about 55 and a half, 56 maybe. So looking forward to it. we will. Thank you.
I'll leave you with this. And Baba Booey to you all.
Thank you, Al. All right, joining me now, as he does every single week, for our Train of Thought segment from WFAN Radio New York, SNY TV in New York, my buddy Sal Licata. Sal, how are you?
Not as well as you, as I know this is like heaven for you with week one upon us.
Week one is upon us. But why are you not? What you love the NFL? Why are you not?
No, I mean, I'm all right. It's just with the baseball in New York and then with the work schedule, it's, obviously this is a busy time of year. It's exciting, no question about it, but I'm still in baseball mode with the Mets and the Yankees before football. So, and then once this starts, obviously Thursday into Sunday, it's just going to be beautiful chaos, but chaos nonetheless.
You can handle both sports at the same time. You've done it your whole life.
No, the Mets are never in the playoffs. What do you mean?
That's true. That's true. I love this time of year. Can I tell you what I have been so into for 2 weeks and have watched it every single day for hours and hours every day is the U.S. Open.
Really?
Yeah. I always watch the U.S. Open, but I've been extra into it this year.
I watched the Serena match Friday.
Yeah, when she lost. Yeah, when she lost. Set all most watched tennis match ever on ESPN was that Friday night Serena loss.
Yeah.
But I'm into it. And I love this with the little tennis during the day, baseball at night. Now you mix in the football.
You're betting on
at night. Of course. I had Tiafu today. That's why I'm all pumped up.
No, I don't even
know. But speaking of betting in football, let me start with this because I tweeted about this on Saturday, but I just need to get this out of my system. They legalized sports betting in New York in January of this year. So that was when we first started here in New York to be able to use all the sites, FanDuel, Caesars, DraftKings, BetMGM, etc. So this is the first time I've been using those sites for college football. The NFL, it was the playoffs, but there were so few games. In the playoffs, you have a couple of games a day. But this is the first time legalized the betting sites, the apps, with the full slate. Those sites suck.
Oh.
I hate every one of them with a burning passion. Give me my illegal offshore site any day of the week. Okay, number one, half the games don't have team totals. I am a team total addict. You know that. Over 20 points for the Giants, over,
They don't have that?
They have them on some games. They don't have them on all games for college football.
Okay.
So that's a problem. On most of those, on Caesars you can. The other sites you can't. You can't buy points. I always buy points. I will never bet a game minus 3.5, minus plus 6.5, minus. I always buy the half point.
Wow.
Can't buy points on FanDuel and DraftKings. So that's a demerit. And then I also love to bet 3 team teasers for 10 points. These sites, the most you can do is 2 teams, 7 points. Get the F out of here. Give me the offshore sites. It's amateur hour with these legalized sites.
Funny, I'm not.
Amateur
I'm not as well versed in this as you. As this has become more and more popular, I've kind of backed off a little bit. But my experience
You've
with
cleaned
it
up your
been,
act.
Yeah, I know. Also, I became a father. There's a lot of different things there. It wasn't just this, but and for me, like I said, it was unhealthy. But my experience with it, I thought it was more options than the illegal offshore one that I was using regularly.
Not for me. This is completely, totally less options. The offshore sites have everything. You could bet 10 team teasers, 8 team teasers, this many. I mean, and the fact that you can't buy points.
I never bought points anyway. I always hated doing that. And the one thing that I hated about the account that I used is that it was a max 4-team parlay. I'd rather do, like you said, 8-team teaser or 6-team parlay or whatever. I want to go back to the days where I picked up the white card in high school or at the bar, circled the little numbers. That's what I want to go back to.
No, I'm going back to the offshore sites. If I get arrested, I get arrested. I don't care.
It wouldn't be the first time.
I was going to say something about that, but I moved on. No team totals on half the college football games ruined my Saturday. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Did you bet? You must have bet like an animal come Saturday morning. Noon to what? 1 a.m.?
I go light week 1. You got to see, even in the NFL, like I'll probably just bet 2 or 3 games this week. You go light. We're going to give you a best bet at some point during this, but we're going to give you a best bet every week. We'll make some kind of bet, maybe a steak dinner or something like that. Whoever has the best record, or I don't know, bring a listener. Who knows? We'll figure something out, but we'll give you a best bet every week and we'll make it a contest. But I had to get that off my chest about the legalized sites. Now, speaking of being a father, I listened to you on WFAN a little bit this week. Why are you bringing a 1-year-old to a Met game?
Well, this was a family outing. I tell you, I keep learning the hard way. I don't think I could do it anymore. I'm not saying this to be amusing, but I would say 1-year-olds do not belong at baseball games. You can't keep them occupied for 4 hours. So here's how it started. Last year, we thought it was a good idea. Now, remember, I'm a rookie parent, so I'm learning as we go here. Last year, we had the good idea that, we'll take her to her first Met game. We'll go with a bunch of people. So we did. It wasn't bad because she was so young that she wasn't crying or whatever. And the one thing we thought with the big group was, let's do this again next year with the bigger group. They'll be a year older. So this was kind of pre-planned where we had 23 people on the party deck at Citi Field. However, again, learning the hard way as a rookie parent, there's a big difference between 6 months and 16 months. Oh, right. And yeah, unfortunately, it became my wife's problem, which in turn becomes my problem. And it was not a pleasant experience. The one common thing all the fathers said to each other, this is great. We need to do this without the kids next time. Again, first of all, to bring a 6-month-old to a game, even if you had a good experience, is absurd because they don't know what's going on. That's her first game, but she has no idea it's her first game. Right. But I get what you're saying there. At 6 months, they stay in the little, what is it called there? The car seat thing. And they don't move a muscle. Right. 1.5-year-old, you got to keep them occupied and entertained. How are you doing that when you're trying to watch a Met game at Citi Field? I was not. My wife was. She had to take her up to the piazza level. It was. You need to consult me on these things. I would have said to you that you're not enjoying your day with a 1-year-old at a Met game. Correct. It was more work than actual work. It was not a smart decision. How flustered were you when you got home? From that particular day, it was not great, but it was. And then what happened? A home run came at you, and you ducked like a big wuss. Yeah. So now we're on the party deck, which is basically the home run wall in left field at Citi Field. I had my daughter in my arms, and I see the ball coming off the bat directly at me. And then I lost it. It's a different perspective on a game when you're out in left field. And I lost it in the clouds or the lights or whatever. So I turned to protect my daughter and myself. And I was embracing to get hit directly on the back. It
And
fell
they caught
short.
it. They caught it on. I saw the video. I mean, you look like a big Frady cat.
And you can't see my daughter in my arms. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think you're making that part up because I rewound it 10 times looking for the baby, and I didn't see her. I didn't see her at all. I said.
That means I did a good job protecting her if you couldn't see her.
You could look at it that way, I guess. Where did the ball end up? Who got the ball? Like, where did it end up? Do you know?
Mark Canna's glove. He caught it on the warning track, I think.
Oh, so it wasn't even in the stands.
Correct. It did not hit.
Oh, my God. What an embarrassing moment. You ducked and the ball wasn't even in the stands. I got to post this video. I got to post this video I'll put it in Train of Thoughts or something. That's amazing. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it was, and I knew it instantly that, this is going to be a problem for me. This is an embarrassment. But anyway.
I'm trying to think, do I want to bring up the fact that you bailed on our yearly college football pool this year?
All right, so let me explain why. I genuinely love you and the pool, and it is camaraderie, and it is fun. However, just for years, it has become like work to get the picks in. I'm not into college football the same way that I was when we first started. I check out on Saturday, so I can't even really enjoy it. So it becomes work on Friday on top of every friggin' thing else that I have to do with the overnights and TV and being at that, all that stuff. It's just one less thing. And as a matter of fact, I don't think I'm doing my NFL pick and pool either this year. I'm cutting everything loose except for the fantasy teams that I committed to, which also was a mistake.
How many fantasy leagues are you going to be in this year?
I said I'm not going to do any. I ended up with 3. You believe that?
No, that's another problem.
Disaster.
That's terrible. You cannot be in 3 fantasy leagues. Sal,
so one of them is SNY. I'm partnered with somebody, so it's not that bad. The other was one that I wanted to win because I've been getting my brains beat in the last couple of years. So I said, this is the last year. If I don't win this league, I'm out. And then the other, I was asked by my buddy Brian Myers, wrestler. He's friends with Matt Cardona, all that stuff. I was like, what the hell? We'll do that league just for fun, for camaraderie, for his wrestling school. So that's how I end up in 3.
All right. You need to limit your camaraderie. I want to do a Twitter poll. What was Sal's worst move? Doing 3 fantasy football leagues or bringing a 1.5-year-old to Citi Field? That's what I want. If anyone's listening, let us know what the worst move was. I need to know what's the worst move there.
Here's what I'm learning. I never learn. I said I wanted out. You know what? I blame the pandemic. I was out of fantasy completely. The pandemic got me back in because I was so starved, and now I've been in ever since. Again.
I could see that. I'm telling you, I got rid of fantasy years ago. I got rid of all the pools. I do a college football pool, and I wager on Sundays. I don't need anything else. Keeps me more than satisfied. I do like doing. I would do an underdog pool where you root for the underdog to win outright and you get the point. I think that's always a solid pool to do. Even the knockout pool. I never enjoyed knockout pools. I know they're huge, they're monstrous. I don't know. It never really got my juices flowing, I must say.
It becomes, I think it could be fun, but ultimately, odds are you're not winning. So you're pissing away the money. That's number one. Number 2, it becomes work. When you have, I legitimately, the last several years, have a note on my desk that I have to write down to make sure, not only like pay the money, this and that, but every week, get my survivor pick in, get my underdog pick in, get the college football picks in, do my weekly sheet, set my fantasy line. I mean, it's like Sunday morning. I'm stressed out on top of the bets and whatever games you're watching for fun. It's
a lot of work. And it's a lot of work. And then there you are doing 3 fantasy football leagues.
It's a stupid move by me. I'm trying to, the one that I'm partners with, I want nothing to do with. After this draft that we got tonight, I'm going to try to back out of that one and let the other guy run it.
All right. I gotta change gears here. We're doing something we don't really do often on the pod, but this involves the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. Recently, in the Train of Thoughts column, I ran a giveaway where I gave away, it was 3 sets of 5 pairs of Tom Brady's underwear via the Brady brand company.
Nice.
And it was a big hit. And now we're going to do it on the podcast. I want to reward the listeners of the podcast. So the nice, fine folks at Brady Brand are providing 5 lucky SI Media Podcast listeners. You have to be in the United States. It's the one caveat. You'll like this. We did the contest in Train of Thoughts. 3 winners. 1 was from Canada. Okay, not a big deal. And 1 was in Poland, which it kind of freaks me out that someone in Poland is reading my column. But that's good reach there, but there's some shipping issues. So you have to be in the United States to win this contest. So the nice folks at Brady Brand, 5 lucky listeners will get the newest seamless performer knit shirt that Brady has been wearing the last several weeks off the field, and you get more Brady Brand underwear. So, and you can check all that out, bradybrand.com. The NFL season is here. What better way to celebrate than by looking like the greatest quarterback of all time? So you get the Brady Brand shirt, the Brady Brand underwear. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it very simple. Go to Apple, leave a 5-star review, and let me know in your review how I can get in touch with you, either a Twitter name or an email. And if we get more than 5, I'll throw the names in a hat and pick out 5. If we get just 5, then those 5 people win. And the key, though, is to put a Twitter and email so I can get in touch with you, because I got to get your size, get your address. So all you got to do is leave a 5-star review on Apple, tell me how to contact you, and you get we'll do a little, pick it out of a hat, and we'll say, we'll give people till next week. We'll give people, till next time we tape. And you get the 5 winners, shirt from the Brady Brand and the underwear from Brady Brand, all on bradybrand.com. So that's how we're going to do this.
Love it. Have you tried these out yet or what?
They sent me the underwear, and they're actually really good. I spared everyone the me wearing them and posting it on Instagram. No one needs to see that. So.
Hey, if I win our picks contest, I want to see that picture of you posted on Instagram, you in the Brady underwear.
Well, then I'm gonna have to think of something for you then. we can figure something out. Let me see. What would I pick for, what would you hate? I'm trying to think what would embarrass you? I can't.
Oh God. Haven't I been embarrassed enough in my life?
You have to maybe we'll maybe you'd have to send like a nice tweet to Roger Clemens. I know you hate him.
God.
You hate him more than any athlete alive. Did you ever get a response? Did you ever get a DM response from Mike Piazza?
No, that was it. No, that's it. It's over. It's fine.
People can check last week's podcast.
Hey, I got something for you that was even worse.
Yeah.
I texted Burkhardt after he threw out the first pitch at Citi Field the other day.
Right.
Nothing back.
Wow. Well, I will say that.
Back, for the record, I go back with Kevin Burkhardt before he was at SNY. This is back to our fan days in like 2004.
So did you text him about coming on your radio show?
No. It was during he threw out the first pitch. It was like a big deal. He was in the broadcast booth on SNY, and I knew that he's probably getting bombarded with texts, but it made me think of something that we used to do back in the fan newsroom, that when I saw him throw the first pitch, so I sent him a little note, just, hey, nice job on the first pitch. That form looked familiar, blah, blah, blah. Now, I didn't say who it was from. I assumed he had my number, but maybe he changed the phone or doesn't have my number anymore. But still, Burkhardt and I were boys, and now he's big time in me.
All right, so there's a couple.
Super Bowl, he forgets about little old Sal.
There's a couple of things there. I thought maybe you texted him to come on the radio show, given that the NFL season started, new number 1 broadcast at Fox. So if you were just texting him a little friendly text, then bad job by Burkhardt not responding. Now, when was the last time you texted him? Like, you think maybe he doesn't have the number in there?
I mean, maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half. I don't text him all the time, bro.
Well, I'll tweet that out as part of the tease for this, and maybe he'll respond to you. I should text him to see if he writes back to me. Then we'll know.
Yeah, that'll piss me off even more. Yeah, I know he's gonna text you back.
I know. I just saw him. He did a bunch of. I think what podcast? I saw him on Shine. He did Shine's podcast this week. So he clearly got back to Adam Shine, and
something had it. So he must have not had my number or known who it is. Something happened, because there's no way KB. I mean, come on, we go way back. Marchand
wrote a huge feature on him, I think, this week.
I saw.
Yeah, so he can legitimately be busy. He could be big timing you. He can maybe not have the number.
I don't think he's big timing me, but I was a little surprised that he did not get back to me. I will.
All right, I'll put it. We'll have an answer next week.
Point is, that's worse than Piazza for me.
Well, yes and no. I mean, Piazza has no excuse to not DM you back. Whereas Burkhardt,
Piazza, we don't even know each other.
Yeah, but Burkhardt either he doesn't have your number, or he probably got a million texts maybe that day, and you just got lost in the shuffle.
Right. I think that's probably what happened.
But I will, when I tweet this out on Thursday, I'll say, did Kevin Burkhardt snub Salicata? And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right. So we have a lot. So we got the Brady brand giveaway, 5-star review on Apple. Let me know how to get in touch with you on the review. And then we'll, next week, we'll see if Sal hears from Mike Piazza or Kevin Burkhardt. Oh, and we got to do a best bet. I almost forgot. So I looked over. I got one best bet. Every week, we're not going to do picks. Everyone does picks and this, and the lines change. We'll give you one best bet every week. I know I have one. Do you have one?
I do not. Not yet.
Go look right now. Go look. Go on your phone and look.
It's okay. I can do it on my phone.
Yeah. This is my best bet. I'll give you mine. I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings +2 at home against the Packers. Here's my reasoning. I think there were major issues between Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer last year. Zimmer is gone now. I think the combination of Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook is lethal. Vikings are at home, and I just think the Packers, I don't think they're going to have a bad season at all. I think, Rodgers is so good, he'll get them the wins that they need. But you don't lose Devontae Adams and have it not be a big deal. It's going to hurt them a little bit. I think Rodgers and the receivers will be fine, but I think they're going to need a little time to get on the same page, build some chemistry. So I think a home dog, I would love it at +3. Again, bringing it back to earlier, if these legalized sites were not pieces of crap, I would buy it to +3, but instead you have to bet it +2 on these sites. On offshore, you can bet it to +3. But for our purposes here for the pool, the line I saw right now, it's Vikings +2 at home. That is my best bet of the week. I will say one thing too. I toyed with Buffalo. Did you see? I'm giving you more time to look. Did you see last night they had like 7 or 8 analysts from the NFL Network pick a Super Bowl champion, and all 8 picked the Bills? If I was a Bills fan, that would make me very nervous.
Yeah. What could go wrong? Everybody in the world's on Buffalo. Those poor people of Buffalo don't want those expectations.
It's crazy. You couldn't. Not one person was not on. Not to get to to win the Super Bowl. They all picked the Bills.
Yeah, I would not. You have a Colts line, by the way. I forgot to look.
There was no line. There was no line when I saw it.
Yeah, I saw the same thing on a bunch of these lines. All right, I'm going to go home dog as well. I'll stick at home in New York. I'm not a Jets fan, but I will be rooting for them. They're getting 7 points. I know it's Joe Flacco, but maybe Flacco against his former team. The Jets have some talent on defense. The Jets should be able to run the ball. Breece Hall, I like him. I love Elijah Mitchell. I think he could be a major weapon for this team. I'm not going to predict the Jets are going to be a playoff team, but they could be on the verge of that. They are going to be much more respectable. 7 points at home against the Ravens team, who I don't think is that good. I'm going to take the Jets. I think they can win that game outright, and I love the fact that they're getting a touchdown at home, even with Joe Flacco at quarterback.
I have a line here, Colts -7 at Texans. You want to stick with the Jets or go with the Colts?
I'll stick with the Jets. I'm high on the Colts overall this year, but I'd rather go with the home dog and get set.
The Jets have talent on offense. There's no doubt. So we'll see. It's all about what Flacco has in the tank. So we'll see what happens.
I'm on the Jets. You're on the Vikings. Both home dogs.
Both home dogs. Good way to start it. I like that. All right, Sal. Try to enjoy week 1. Enjoy the Mets down the stretch. Don't take anyone to a Met game that's under 6 years old, maybe.
Yeah, that's over. And by the way, we got to set up when you start coming over I got to work the kinks out week 1 here. Once I figure that out, then we'll see where we could get set up moving forward.
I'm looking. I will be there to watch the NFL. NFL is here. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. And we will see you next week. Thanks, Sal.
All right. See you later.
All right. All right. My thanks to Roman Reigns and Andy Staples for joining me this week. Sal will be back next week for Train of Thoughts. Had to skip it this week. That was on me. But we'll see Sal next week. My thanks again to Roman Reigns, Andy Staples. If you missed any recent episodes, go into the archives, check them out. Leave a review on Apple. We will read it on the pod very shortly. All right. That wraps it up for this week. We'll see you next week right here on the SI Media Podcast. Stay safe and take care.